Crownandskull, a brand new tabletop RPG game system and setting created by the dwarven warrior himself, Hankerin Ferdinand, or more commonly referred to as Brandish Gilhelm of ye olde Runehammer Games. I've been following Crownandskull's development for quite some time now, and it's rare to see such love and passion expressed in a project like this. If you're trying to get some highlights of what you can expect with Crownandskull, then this video is for you. So what makes this game any different from the slew of tabletop RPG systems popping up everywhere? Well, to start, Crownandskull is a massive tome of 345 somewhat pages in a stunning digest-style trim that actually puts your 4th grade level Wizards of the Coast books to shame. I snagged a copy of the gold edition myself because, well, look at it. It's stunning. The book's pre-order was only open for 5 days, but don't worry if you missed it. You should be able to purchase physical copies on the Runehammer website after the initial print cycle ships. Speaking of shipping, AOB, any word when folks can purchase the physical copy of Crownandskull on your website?
Who are you? Well, now is the time. Of course, it's ready to go. The boat has arrived. It's old news. Look at this here, the tiny little face. His tiny little highlight on his tiny little face. Oh, hello, I'm a little skeleton. I've got a tiny highlight on my face.
Awesome, thanks B. Good guy. So the Runehammer webpage claims this system will prove a significant departure from the mechanics and methods that have seen such meteoric growth in recent years. Having played 2 sessions of Crownandskull at the time I'm recording this video, I can attest that it is indeed a departure from these mechanics, but not so much that you would feel completely lost. Crownandskull's core mechanics are best described as delightfully familiar and refreshing. I encourage you to check out the free player quick start and give it a read yourself, link down below. Crownandskull has a rather impressive character creation point buy system, as well as a truly one-of-a-kind magic system that we'll talk a little bit about later on in this video. It's got dice-driven enemy tactics for 40 unique monsters, an extensive and complete GM section that's actually useful, an absolutely stunning world map, and an elegant alternative to tracking hit points. There's even several short stories sprinkled throughout the book that drop you into the lore of the North Holds. Seriously, this tome reads like a rulebook, game setting, and novel all slammed into one. Because this is a first look video, I do want to share my top 3 favorite aspects of Crownandskull that I've uncovered so far. So let's get to it. The first thing I love about Crownandskull is called attrition. Many tabletop RPGs have some sort of system for tracking damage, hit points, or whatever. But one of the biggest problems I've personally had with the concept of hit points is how having 50 of them is essentially the same thing as having 1. Now I acknowledge this isn't necessarily a problem, and in many games it's actually a feature, but Crownandskull has a solution that's quite similar to another RPG I've talked about on this channel called Viking Death Squad. In VDS, each piece of gear you have can take 3 hits before it's permanently destroyed. When you have no gear left, the next hit is lethal. Crownandskull is similar that if you take a hit without any skills or equipment left, you're dead. Anytime you would take damage, or in the correct Crownandskull terminology, failing a defense roll, you would instead mark off one of your skills or pieces of equipment. Which one you mark off is determined by the type of attrition you suffer, and there are 5 different types: basic, flesh, equipment, destroy, and brutal. You can only have 10 skills and 10 pieces of equipment max. So if you do, you essentially have 21 hit points at the superlative of levels in Crownandskull. The really cool thing about attrition is each point that you take includes a narrative element that limits your character's abilities in a way that traditional hit points wishes it did. Crownandskull has the coolest custom spell creation system I've ever seen in a tabletop RPG. Using your hero points, which is the main form of currency for buying your skills and equipment during character creation, you can create unique spells that do exactly what you want them to do. Now there are standard pre-designed spells if you're not into this level of customization, but this highlight is specifically referencing the custom spell creation system in the game. Spells start at a basic level with 1 cast, they require somatics, they have a default duration of 1d6 phases, a base of 1d6 effect, a range of touch, and a single target. Still following? This is just the baseline though. When you create a custom spell, you can choose additional effects from 4 different groups to improve the spell. I made a pretty neat custom spell for my character Merrick Renito that allows him to control shadows that incapacitate his foes. Pretty similar to one of my favorite characters, Shikamaru, from a popular Japanese anime called Naruto. You might have heard of it. I might make another video that's more of a deep dive on custom spell creation, so let me know in the comments if you're interested in that. And lastly, we got this crazy concept of a mapless dungeon. Basically, when you enter a dungeon, you roll 2d4, one for the location and one for the encounter. The location d4 describes what the area around you looks like, while the encounter d4 describes what you find or run into. Once you resolve that encounter by fighting, negotiating, sneaking, or flying, you rinse and repeat. However, you only progress to the new location by finding the exit, which requires that you roll a 4 on the location die. I love that this system gives the GM the ability to discover the dungeon at the same time as the players, instead of just knowing everything ahead of time. I'll definitely be using this mechanic to run my own mapless dungeons. But what do you think? Would you run a dungeon like this without a map? If you want to hear more about Crownandskull's mapless dungeons, you should definitely go check out Paladin Pro's video on the topic somewhere up here. Alright, I know I said 3, but I do have one more honorable mention. Crownandskull is sort of system agnostic. What I mean by that is there are many tools, resources, and mechanics in this book that can easily be used in another game system. I'm definitely going to be using some of the custom weapon concepts in my Shadow Dark campaign. And the Northhold setting itself could easily be dropped into an old school Essentials or Index Card RPG campaign. Go for it. But don't just take my word for it, go check out the free player quick start yourself over at runehammer.online. Thank you everyone for watching. This is the way. Just kind of adopted the Mandalorian phrase for this channel. It's fine, it's totally cool. This is the way.
Are you still here? Still talking, young man? I think you should spend more time reading Crownandskull rather than talking all the time. Talking.